this year, 2025, we are hosting the AERC summit for the first time ever on the 30th day of November, continuing up to the 2nd of December. The main motivation for us to convene a huge summit, you can call it a jamboree, is to get together the best researchers across Africa, to get also the top policymakers across Africa, to get also private sector leaders, to engage in discussing the way Africa is going to pave ahead in the next 10 years to navigate this uncertain terrain, uncertain economic terrain, uncertain financial environment that has been ushered on globally with the end of aid, and the need for African countries to mobilize their funds and fund new priorities across the continent. That's where the discussion is focusing on. Okay. Given the new economic developments across the globe, where the OECD countries are not funding Africa, where the concessional funding is coming to a stop, how do we mobilize funds and design strategies for being able to mobilize enough development finance for the continent, country by country, regionally, and as a continent as a whole? How do we do it? That's a conversation that will be taking place over the next 3 days. The important stakeholders are the alumni of AERC. These are former students of AERC that are now central bank governors, finance ministers, holding important positions across Africa. These are also alumni as researchers who have, over the last 37 years, produced path-breaking research that informs policymakers and private sector practitioners on how to embed strategies for innovation and for development. Those are the important stakeholders, but also the other important stakeholders are the funding agencies that have funded the AERC over the years. They will be present there. Are also the former members of staff who started the organization way back in 1988 and did all the groundbreaking work that has seen the AERC as number one capacity building, as number one think tank, and as number one research institution in Africa. The other stakeholders, of course, are the policymakers. They bring out the problems they are facing, they bring out the issues, we research them, and we co-create knowledge, and we co-design strategies for development. The other stakeholders are the private sector. The other stakeholders are the network members across the world, not only in Africa, but Africans in diaspora, non-Africans who are researching on Africa. That's the network, the broad network that is a global in Africa, in Europe, in Asia, in North America, in Canada. Those are the stakeholders that encompass the big family of the AERC. For the first time ever in the history of the AERC since 1988, we are launching a 10-year strategic plan. We are shifting from 5-year time horizons of our planning, moving into a 10-year strategy, because the ground has shifted so fundamentally in the economics profession with new disciplines. The ground has shifted so much in the policy making, and the ground has shifted so much in the private sector space, where innovation is so important. I just want to recall that the Nobel Prize for Economics this year was awarded to Philip Hajion, a good friend of the AERC, in the area of innovation. And that's where the private sector needs to go. So we need to look at 10-year horizon. We need to stand now to look at 2025, 2035. And the technique, methodology of designing that 10-year strategy was like this. It's called the pre-mortem strategy. you stand in 2035, right? And then you look back to 2025 where you are now. And then you envision the journey that's going to take you from 2025 to 2035. You also envision what is it that could go wrong that might make achievement on some of these goals difficult. And since you can identify what can go wrong in that journey, then you try to mitigate against any possible contingencies that may get the strategy wrong. The 10-year journey happens when Africa is transitioning from aid dependency to depending on themselves, each African country depending on the other, getting together as regions, and of course the whole continent, the African Continental Free Trade Area. You need 10 years to look at that. You can't just simply say what is happening in 5 years. You need to forecast 10 years and then now start on the journey. And evaluate the journey yearly. There has to be a monitoring, evaluation, learning framework. Have I achieved the budget for this year? Am I still in the goal for 2035? This is the journey we are traveling. But of course, at the AERC, we don't intend to travel that journey alone. We will just travel with the entire network and with the stakeholders for the next 10 years. At the end of the summit next week by Wednesday, I will be thinking, okay, now the strategic plan for 10 years is launched. The vision and focus on a renewed AERC for Africa's new development priorities. The priorities have to change. Starting the launching of the journey, and we will then be looking for the next steps, would be then to now consolidate and entrench our partnerships. Something we have started on, the MOUs, the partnerships with central banks. Something that will happen in the first session will be African Central Bank Governors Forum, to get central bank governors to talk with us as researchers. What are the challenges they are facing? We'll also become futuristic, because we know in about 10 years' time, central banks will be issuing what is called central bank digital currencies. How will central bank digital currencies operate? What will happen for a private sector? How about households? How will receiving your salary or your expenditures? How about selling bonds? Now, so this is the whole conversation. From now on, we then next move in the course of December, we shall be now entrenching, consolidating our network, memberships across Africa. And then in January, we shall now be launching the programs. There will be programs with the SA Central Bank, programs with the Ministries of Finance, programs with the private sector. And by March 2026, that phase, what do we intend to achieve? Number one, the conversations that are starting between us and the private sector will lead to the AERC private sector platform, which will include a platform for conversations, will include also a hub for research, and also include a hub for data on private sector companies. So this is new. This has not happened since 1988. Okay. Engaging the private sector in AERC work. But there will also be another innovation that has to take place by March 2026. And this is the AERC HIT, the AERC Hub for Investment and Trade. The AERC will be driving the strategies, advice, evidence, indicators, metrics for investment and trade across Africa. Call it intra-African trade, intra-African investment, but also between Africa and the rest of the world. Because strategically, we need the data, we need directions. And that hub, the HIT, the AERC HIT, will be launched before the end of March 2026. Okay. Also before the end of March 2026, we will have the first ever twinned PhD program. do a pilot. We start with a pilot, 5 students, 10 students. But it will be a step change from what has been achieved in the last 37 years, where we achieved a framework for enabling African universities, departments of economics of African universities to collaborate, teach programs together, supervise students together. Now what we have a step change, that we want to now go global, teach on the best universities across the world, so that the African universities, which already have a framework, are bringing to the fold the top universities globally. Our students will be able to get and enjoy and engage with their peers, rubbing shoulders with their peers in top universities around the world, in addition to being engaged in this framework across Africa. That will be a step change. And within that step change, we have also innovations in it. For example, having a higher proportion of female students, because this is now a low proportion, and having higher percentage, say 70%, to be a proportion of female students, because for them to be able to weigh in academia, in high policy circles in Africa, and international organizations. You do a pilot, you develop the templates, you test them, and then you embed them. And now go ballistic. You can increase the numbers from 10 students to 100 students. These are the leaders of economic sectors in Africa in 2040, 2035. We are establishing them there. You walk into an office in a central bank in Africa, you say, yes, I trained in the AERC. You plan today so that they're in position in the future. Alumni are very critical to the AERC. And my message to them is, you have a stake in the AERC because you are AERC and you want the AERC to live forever. Because you have a big stake in this organization. And in the leadership, in the governance, in the engagement, this is the organization, please get involved in it to be able to realize that big stake in the organization.